your flesh and blood.
Welcome to Tell Me Your Story. New paradigms for a new world where we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here 9 times a week. Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m., streaming live at all those times at richarddugan.com. We are on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, as well as YouTube, where you can watch these conversations. I hope that you will take time to subscribe and click notifications so that when a new conversation is posted, you'll be notified and you'll be able to tune in, listen in, and learn, and be entertained and inspired. A reminder that Choices, which is my book, 5 Steps for Life, it's available on Amazon.com in paperback, hardcover, and Kindle with Audible, soon to be released. We also ask that if you can support the work that we are doing financially, we do have a PayPal account. It is there for your security as well as ours. And when they ask for an email address to whom you're sending, please go to richard@richarddugan.com. That's the email address. If you go to richarddugan.com, there is also a link directly to PayPal so that you can send us whatever support you can. And we thank you to those who have helped and to those who will help. We also ask that you take time during this decade of perfect vision, the 2020s, to go within to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place and listen to that still, small voice. And with that, we now take you to our very special interview and guest here on Tell Me Your Story. Welcome to Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, your host. My very special guest today is Maja Taylor. Why is she here? Well, she's a coach, not of any particular sport, unless, of course, you consider your vocation, your career, your life's purpose of sorts, a sport. I suppose some people might, because they're having fun at it. And that's what we're going to talk about. Maja, thank you so much for joining us here on the program.
Thanks for having me, Richard. It's a pleasure.
Been through the program and have had a lot of fun doing that. And you are a career ownership coach. And there's information that people can gather, which we will give them. Your website, of course, is majataylor.com, MAJATAYLOR.com. And we encourage folks to go there. Email address is pretty much the same, almost the same. It's majataylor@eresourcecoach.com, and we'll give that out a few more times. What we want to do is inform you folks, as Maja informed me, about either continuing to pursue what you're doing because you enjoy it so much, or maybe doing what would you say, an assessment, a reevaluation, saying, oh, this isn't bad, but I don't know, maybe there's something that's maybe more fulfilling. And if, again, making the money is part of that process, that's just fine. What kinds of people come your way? Starting over or starting from where they are? Where do you begin with people?
Great question. We'll begin at the beginning, but with the end in mind.
Mm-hmm.
I work with people from all walks of life. The focus is career coaching. In particular, how do they move from where they are right now into their next phase? Some people know what that is.
Mm-hmm.
Some people don't. I help both. I work with people who are maybe corporate refugees who don't feel like their career is going where they want it to go. I work with people who recently have been laid off, downsized, or capsized. And maybe that was a surprise. Maybe it wasn't a surprise. Maybe it's just like, I've been working in this one job for the last 25 years. I think I'm done with it. I'm just not passionate about it anymore. So the coaching journey itself is a chance for them to step back and engage on a learning journey. And where you were 10, 15, 20 years ago was probably a very different spot in your career. And often we just get swept up by life, by the career, by, what other people think we should be doing, by promotions that maybe were unexpected. and they took people in different directions. So here's a chance to just reassess, am I still going in the direction that I want to go? So we spend a good amount of time on evaluation. There's two assessments I use, a DISC and a career questionnaire, and help people just clarify, how do you prefer to work? How do you like working with others? What are some of the things that motivate you? What are the opportunities that you see right now? What are some things that you're concerned about? What does the market look like for you right now? And help them clarify of of what it is their goals are when we're talking about income, when we're talking about growth, personal growth, professional growth. How are you on track for your retirement? How are you as far as fulfilling your dream and vision of what you always wanted to work on? Are you working in your passion and your mission? Some people are at a point in their life where they're starting to think about, what kind of legacy do I want to leave behind? Not just for, maybe my family or children, but also, how do I want to be remembered? What
Hmm.
is it that I want to focus on in my life? Most people that cross my path are at a pivot point somewhere in their career. And I employ a holistic career coaching approach because we spend a lot of waking hours at
Hmm.
work in our professions. Wouldn't you rather it be something that you really enjoy and also can make money at, right? So the financial part, not to forget that, but oftentimes I come across people who just, they don't know where else to turn and they're not quite sure what's next for them. So let's figure out where that will lead you today. Is it another job? Okay, I have resources to help you pursue that avenue. Is it maybe you want to focus more on your investments? Okay, we have resources. Maybe you've always thought about real estate. We have resources for that too. But my focus is really on helping people become self-sufficient. Have you ever thought about having your own business? Maybe have flirted with the idea of entrepreneurship. Hence, the Entrepreneur Source is the name of the company that I'm affiliated with, and we specialize in that. So, what would that look like for you? It's not an easy journey. Um, Sometimes people are overwhelmed by what's out there, don't know where to start, maybe don't know what questions to ask, and I help with that. So if you're open to explore what's next for you in your career and you have thought about business ownership, that's ideal. So I'll work with people also who already have their own business and maybe are looking to diversify. Maybe they're looking to add additional income streams, or just want to go in a different direction. I know, long answer to a short
No,
question, but
and
I'm really willing to talk with anyone who just is kind of wondering, okay, where do I go next?
well, long answers are certainly welcome here because otherwise I've got to fill the time, which sometimes I do anyway. But what is interesting to me is, and of course, folks are wondering, well, what does this have to do with your focus of new paradigms for a new world and giving people choices and knowledge of those choices to help make their dreams come true? And honestly, it has everything to do with it because we are in a new world, and whether people want to recognize it or not, and I'd love your input on this, we are living in a global market. This is not a national thing, this is global because you have the opportunity, because of our technology, to touch not hundreds or thousands, but millions of people around the world. And so you have an opportunity to access resources through you, Maya, that might, who knows, might take you on a move somewhere else on the planet that could change your life, we hope, for the better. And I know that that's one of the things that we talked about throughout my sessions. I wanted to ask you about a survey or I guess you'd call it a questionnaire that I filled out. I was 19 years old, fresh out of high school, wondering what the heck I was going to do. I was actually taking I think I took a 6 month sabbatical. That's what I like to call it. It sounds fun. Before I went to junior college, and I took this test, and at the end of the test, it told me that I should be a farmer. It was referred to as an aptitude test.
Mhm.
I assume that you could label yours your surveys or your questionnaires as aptitude tests, but I don't think so. I think we've moved beyond aptitude tests to something higher, something greater, right? You mentioned
Um,
DISC,
well, I don't want to call it higher or greater. It's a different focus.
different
So
focus. Okay.
yeah, so the assessment I use is it's called an executive disc. And um it's actually one of the probably one of the most widely globally used assessments in the world of work. I've used it in my former life in corporate America. And it basically gives the individual a higher level of awareness and learning about themselves, their preferred work style, their preferred communication style. And once you are more knowledgeable and self-aware of how you come across to other people,
Mhm.
you have the ability to understand what the person across the table is, right? We don't work on an island. You work either with your team members, you have um, clients, customers, maybe you have peers. In some cases, we still have bosses. I'm sorry if you do. um, you have to work with other people. So how do you make those interactions more fruitful? How do you lead to better and more successful outcomes? And the DISC assessment can help with that because you gain awareness of how you come across. It gives you a little bit of insights of how you see yourself versus how others perceive you. And then I debrief the results with the career seeker. So the second component in the DISC assessment is really figuring out what is it that really makes you tick.
Mm.
Based on the answers that you give in the assessment, it comes back with kind of a ranking of what energizes you, what conditions are ideally present for you in a work environment for you to be at your best. I'm a huge proponent of strength-based coaching. You may have heard of that. There are other assessments in that realm, but it leads to a more satisfying and fulfilling and also successful career if you can work in your strong skill sets. So the career questionnaire that I do go over with my clients dives in that a little bit deeper. What do you think are your skills and strengths? And then we unpack that. What are some of those skill sets that we can take and transfer to a different industry,
Mm.
to a different kind of business? And a lot of people are surprised by how much is transferable. I think most of us have these internal voices that maybe aren't very kind, and I'm kind of that mirror and that sounding board to help them figure out a path of what is it that you can use that you have right now
Mm.
and employ in a different, whether it's employment or business, right? If they want to explore business ownership, if you led others in the past, if you worked with customers, if you maybe your background is marketing or your background is engineering, there are so many different nuances and skill sets in there that translate really well into entrepreneurship. So
Mm.
we explore that and see if that's what they want to pursue. It's a
Hmm.
very individual journey. So the
Yeah.
assessments kind of help guide us on that path.
Reminds me of a good friend of mine. He's a regular guest on the program each week. We talk about from his book. It's called Real Impact: Daily Inspiration, and he's in real estate as well. And he has students he teaches. And he came into the classroom one day with a map. I think it was a map of the U.S. Road map is what it was. And he laid it down on his desk and he turned to his students and says, "Where do you want to go?" And they just kind of looked at him with a dumbstruck look and going, "What? What do you mean, where do we want to go?" He says, "Yeah, we have this map here. Where do you want to go?" I said, "Well, I don't know." Okay. Then this map has absolutely no value. As soon as you choose where you want to go, this map is valueless. It's priceless because now you're going to be able to go where you want to go because you're going to have a roadmap to show you the way. And that's what you're talking about. If someone doesn't have a goal, a destination, if you will, and it's all great that, hey, it's not in the destination, it's the journey that's the most important thing. But if you don't have a destination, you don't have a goal, then none of what you have to offer, because that's where you really have to start. As you said before, you were going to start at the beginning by starting at the end. What is it that you want? And those were the kinds of questions you asked me, as well as your questionnaires asked me. And I have to say that this was really an interesting insight. This was yesterday, as of our conversation. I was sitting in the home of a gentleman who is recording a book. I'm recording it, and he's narrating it. And it was the end of the day. We had been together for a previous two-hour session, and I did fine. But on this instance, yesterday, I'm sitting there and I'm listening and I'm following along with the PDF, and I'm almost falling asleep because I was so exhausted. I couldn't believe it. I was like, wake up, you knucklehead. The last thing you want to do is hit your head on the keyboard in front of this guy. And then it got me to wondering, is this really what I want to do? Well, it is. But as I said, I was exhausted. It was the end of a very busy day.
Mm.
And so what it told me was, okay, in future, you're probably a good idea either not to have a whole lot going on beforehand, or B, do this earlier in the day if you can. Obviously schedules are permitted. Um, there are events in history, and let's just say the last 30 years, that have changed the lives of people and their careers, in some cases, literally overnight. And I'm thinking of the economic downturn of 2007, 2008. And I heard about how many people were losing their jobs left and right. It was unbelievable.
Mm.
But what was fascinating was the next year or so, the entrepreneurial boom, an explosion of new businesses, probably by many of these people who had lost their jobs.
Mm.
So this kind of goes to that core question, what do you really want? Because a lot of these people who probably lost their jobs, and I'm just going to guess, on average, probably didn't like the job they were in. It was maybe, oh, this is what our family does. My dad did this and his dad, or what have you, or whatever the case might be. And it wasn't really what they wanted to do. So now, even though they always had the opportunity to choose to go a different direction, now the events around them opened up that door for them. Do you find that there are people who they do feel like they are stuck where they are? And I'm not going to ask you for a percentage because I know there are some in there that's the case. I've been doing this for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, and it's just not fulfilling. I don't like going into work. I can't wait to get home. And what is it? The one day that is dreaded of all days during the week is Sunday because they know how they have to go back to that job. Um, what is your assessment with the people you've worked with, and over how many years have you been doing this in terms of helping people, facilitating these transitions? Sometimes it's a literal change of career, and sometimes it's just a slight shift, but still these transitions throughout a person's life.
Yeah, that's a great question. So some of those transitions are definitely dependent on what's happening externally,
Hmm.
but career and profession and what you want to do, that's an inside job,
Hmm.
right? So what you were saying, if somebody is dragging themselves to their day-to-day grind and is not really happy or fulfilled what they're doing, I don't know, do you want to do this for the next 20 years? You have to really ask yourself. So some of the work that we do is just centered around that. Some people don't even know how unhappy they are until they're presented with some other options and choices. So I
Hmm.
always say to people, so I've been doing this for over 17 years now. I've been a coach and I have helped people find what is your next best step in your career. And in the recent years, my focus has become more around let's help you make that transition to entrepreneurship and self-sufficiency, because as long as you are working for someone else, well, there are some limitations, right? Somebody else determines how much you're worth. Somebody else tells you when to be where and do X job. And if you love doing that, that's fantastic. I come across people who love what they do, and then more power to them, right? They're in the right spot.
Hmm.
Um, but if you love your job and you've been capsized or caught up in a downsizing, or, all of a sudden leadership changed and they're bringing in their own or different people. So now that means even though you were able to save the company $1 million and you always showed up on time and your performance reviews were fantastic, you're out on the street. I've I've come across that. I've come across people who are just really utterly tired because they're bored and they don't see their career going anymore. They just want a new challenge.
Hmm.
So I always say if you're open to learn, you will hear about some concepts and ideas that you probably have never considered. I'm happy to talk to you as long as you keep an open mind, right? Because you
Hmm.
don't know what you know. We all make decisions based on what's happened in the past. But what
Yeah.
got you here won't get you there, wherever there is. So let's start defining what does your there look like in the future? In an ideal world, what would you want to be present? Do you want to spend more time with your family? Do you want to have time with the grandkids or the kids or learn how to fly fish or finally follow that, hobby of cycling that you've been wanting to spend more time on, just never got to? Is it that you want to make more money than you've been making? You feel like you've been underpaid? Like what I have people rank kind of some of their priorities of that gives me an idea of where we focus on the most. And being open to learn is like the most important part.
Hmm.
And then also just respect the time. Respect your time, respect my time. I want to be intentional about which direction we're going in. So the crafting of the vision and goals is super important. There's homework in between our sessions because in coaching, growth happens in between the sessions. You
Yeah.
remember me saying that because you've been through it.
Hmm.
And then I want to match you up with some opportunities that might be interesting for you to explore based on what you told me
Yeah.
and really learn about what that might look like, right? Can I see myself doing this thing? So it's kind of test driving before you actually get in the car and drive off in it, which is why this learning journey is so helpful to people. You can explore in a safe space
Maya
of what
Taylor
really
is
works
my
for you.
guest here on the program. We are talking about my career, your career. Actually, I prefer using the term not career, but a vocation. I can honestly say that with only a very few short-term exceptions, I have never worked a day in my life. But there's one aspect we want to talk
Lucky
about as
you.
we, there's one aspect I want to talk about as we continue here, and that is this aspect of what some might consider wasted time. We'll do that as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan along with Maya Taylor. MayaTaylor.com is the website. She has a booklet or a book that is available through her website, if I'm correct, Your Career Revolution. And it's reimagining and reclaiming the life of your dreams. There you are, showing it right there. People are seeing it throughout the YouTube video as well. Um, I have been doing what I've been doing in broadcasting pretty much continuously for almost 46 years. However, my work career started out mowing lawns, delivering newspapers for 5 years from eighth grade through high school graduation. Worked for a photo lab. I worked for a multi-level marketing company back in the early 90s. Worked in a warehouse of light bulbs in the mid 90s, but always went back to radio. Always went back to broadcasting and broadcast producing. And at one point through some of these jobs, once I got into broadcasting in 79, I asked myself, what does this have to do with, what I was doing in radio, which I loved so much? And it was then that I changed the question. What am I learning here that I can take to the next step?
Hmm.
Meaning, I'm not wasting my time in this side job, so to speak, working in a warehouse or working in an MLM. There's something here that I'm going to take with me. And communications was certainly one of those with an MLM because I was working on the inside, not so much talking with the people, in the downlines and those kind of things, but with the people in the office and producing their product, which was an audio tape that went along with a book. The same thing in the warehouse. It was relating with a bunch of other blind and visually impaired people and learning how to be very careful handling light bulbs of various sizes, shapes, and colors, as well as working with a supervisor who was totally sighted and was also very sensitive too, but never let us off the hook when there were problems, but sensitive to the conditions under which we were existing, and that was with our visual impairments. Do you think that do people come to you and let's say through these assessments you find out that they feel as though they've wasted their time, and that's something that sometimes you need to sort of open up their eyes to see that you didn't really waste your time. It's just that you need to look a little deeper into what you were doing, and you can then take those things, those tools that let's call them those that you learned there, and bring them forward to the present.
Oh, of course, yes. So I wouldn't say people feel like they wasted their time, right? I'm a very spiritual person.
Mm-hmm.
I believe in divine intervention, and where you are right now is right where you're supposed to be, even if it doesn't feel very good, right?
Mm-hmm.
There were things that happened to you and choices that you made that got you to this point. I could say that I've met some people who just were so far pulled off their center by their profession
Mm-hmm.
that they didn't know, is this really what I want to do? Is this really what I'm good at? Oftentimes, it's determined by their environment of how they feel about what they do. So having the opportunity to work with a coach where we create that space where you really have time to sit with that and feel yourself again. So you can actually craft a vision with me, or I'm crafting it with you. I think it's kind of finding that place back where you can focus and center.
Mm-hmm.
Listen to the thing that you came here with, because we all have our special skills. We're anointed with a craft. We're anointed with some wisdom that we came with. And it's easy to forget that because there are a lot of distractions out there, right? There are people who tell you what to do. There is a society who has certain expectations. Maybe you had kids and you didn't have time to focus on what you wanted to do. It was more around, well, they needed food on the table and I needed to provide a roof over the head, right? So there are just things that happen along our journey where sometimes we can get a little bit off path. And it's helping people find their path again. And that just comes by providing that space and asking the right questions. So I've been a coach for a long time, and I always describe myself as I'm a coach at heart. I love watching that process, and I'm really honored when people trust me enough and allow me to walk alongside them for a little while and help them find that thing, that their inner ding again, if they have lost, their mission. It's kind of like there's a saying, a really good friend will help you hear that voice in your heart when you have forgotten it, and kind of help you find back to yourself. So that's part of that, finding your mission again. And then how can we use what we find and also turn it into a, should I say, profession that also pays you what you're worth.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's not just about the vision and the passion. That's important. I think we should start there. But let's face it, we all work and live in a 3D world where we have mortgages or rent to pay. There's car payments. There's people who are hungry in your family that want to eat. You need money, right? So we spend some good time around that as well. What does that look like for you? How much do you need? Or how much do you want to make? What does that look like as you look forward into heading into retirement? Do you have a plan?
Yeah.
If not, do we need to make a plan? And there are other resources. I'm certainly not the expert on all of those categories, but I can connect you to people who are good at that. So finding people in spaces where sometimes they're pretty devastated, yes, and sometimes they're ready to just start the new adventure, right? You just have to meet people where they are in their place. And I'm a question asker by nature. My
Mm-hmm.
background is science. Halfway into my career, I switched from developing technologies and science into developing people. I worked in corporate HR, I worked in talent development. So I'm all about learning. Every
Mhm.
day is a chance for you to expand your knowledge, to expand your skill set. And you might something new, or you might learn something new or hear something that will get you to that next step that you need to do for yourself.
Yeah, what flashed in my mind when you said that about your career and your transition and so forth, it made me think of the people that you're working with. And there was a book that I read back in 1982, and a dear friend of mine, my best friend, gave me. He was working in bookstores. He worked at Walden's and B. Dalton. I mean, he was general manager of a whole region here in the Southwest. He moved back to New York City, where he was working there in the city of Manhattan and so forth. And the book he gave me was the book called "The Greatest Miracle in the World" by Og Mandino, and it spoke of what was referred to as the main character, if you will, was a gentleman by the name of Simon Potter, and he was self-proclaimed a rag picker.
Hmm.
And a rag picker, if you know the term, is an individual who helps to pick up and assist the human rags, if you will. That a lot of people, that's the way they think of them, but they're still human beings, and tries to help them to get back on their path. He doesn't force them to do anything, he just gives them an opportunity. And I feel as though there are times when I feel like one of those individuals. And fortunately for me, over the years, I've developed this. It's fleeting. I mean, we're talking, I'll feel that way for maybe a couple of seconds. And then I'll bounce back to, oh, wait a minute. Let's take an assessment here. What am I grateful for? Look at not only all that I have, the stuff, but the relationships,
Mhm.
where I live, where I work, what I do. Um, you mentioned the fact that you were a spiritual person, and I'm wondering about juxtaposing or balancing, if you will, those aspects of who we really are with
Mhm.
what we do. Because I've heard this time and time again. You aren't what you do. That is
Mhm.
that is not who you are. That's what you do. That's all it is what you do. Um, and I can kind of codify that down in a personal growth program. They had us write down on this big piece of construction paper that I still have. And this was going back to 1981. I was dubbed, by the way, as what was it they called me? The Prince of Darkness, because I was coming across so gloomy most of the time in the program. But near that end, I was able to write on that sheet, I am a giving, risking, exciting man. How do you help people to find out, and maybe I don't know if it's even part of this process, to find out who they really are?
Hmm. Great question. Some of it with the help of the assessment, some of it by just asking the right questions.
Hmm.
My job as a coach is to kind of pull you out of your comfort box a little bit, have you think about things that maybe normally you wouldn't. Um, I have to say that, I part of this career coaching is life and grief coaching too. Some people will break down into tears and see, oh my gosh, this was so spot on, this assessment. I can't believe, just answering some questions would be so accurate about who I am and what I want. And it's helping people remember who they are, really. It's not like they don't know. They
Hmm.
know. It's
Yeah.
inside.
Hmm.
It's just asking the right questions to bring that back up to the surface. That's my role, really. And then um, focused on who they are at their core and living their passion through their profession. That's just one thing we're addressing, right? Because it can be a double-edged sword. Some people, like you said this earlier, right? You said,
Hmm.
I never worked a day in my life. Lucky you. Not everybody can say this,
Yeah.
but it's a double-edged sword to work a passion, because if you say maybe you turn a favorite hobby into a a business or a job, a thing that you do daily, will you still love it as much? So we explore that too. Part of the education is, well, how does it enable you to live then? Can you get paid by doing that thing? Because if you're, knitting unicorn blankets and nobody else thinks they're as fabulous as you think they are, and they don't, nobody's interested, do you really have a profitable profession, right?
Mm.
So like I said earlier, we live in a 3D world. We always need to think about the money part too, but wouldn't it
Sure.
rather be something that you really enjoy doing? So the education is around open your mind up to different avenues from what you used to do in the past, because that's kind of limiting, right?
Yeah.
Let's learn about different industries. Let's learn about different ways of working. And then also, um, how much money do you want to need to be making? And we have the whole educational path around how you fund a business, say, or how you get to that financial goal. How do you plan for your retirement? And then how do we take actionable steps to turn that into reality? That's all part of the journey, right?
Mm.
Why do you work? A lot of people will tell me, I don't ever want to retire. I need to be busy. And I say the same thing, right? I don't really feel like I'm working because I love what I do.
Yeah.
Um, but I couldn't see myself sitting on the couch with the feet up watching TV shows or floating somewhere going fishing every day. That would get boring too. A lot of people still want to be intellectually challenged. They still want to get out and, connect and network and work with other people because they still want to grow regardless of their age, right?
Hmm.
So just helping craft that. What do you want to see? Is that part of who you are? Do you want to just hang up the keys and say you're done with your job at 60 or 65? Some people maybe even sooner. Some people tell me, I want to travel the world. That's wonderful. Good for you. For somebody else, that might not work at all because they just
Hmm.
want to spend time with their grandkids and they want to stay put and they want to bake cookies, right? Some people want to create a business that leaves a legacy, and they are hoping that their children and children's children's will continue to work in that business and create some generational wealth, right? It really just depends on where they want to take this.
Yeah.
Sky is the limit. I always say that. Give me your blue sky vision of where you want to take this, and we'll try to get you there.
Yeah, I'll be doing some retiring here shortly. I've got my mechanic ready to put 4 new tires on my car.
Okay.
That's the retiring. And it's like you, I don't feel like I'm working. I feel like I would like to continue doing this until and as long as I still have good quality of life. I hope that takes me to the age of 100. Uh,
Hmm.
and sharing the guest's thoughts with our listeners, like the little book that you've got, Your Career Revolution, reimagining and reclaiming the life of your dreams, as we continue here with Maja Taylor on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, and this program is designed to bring you new paradigms for a new world, giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. And another phrase that we use that ties into what you're talking about, looking for those new ways of living, because though I use this in the broader sense of our institutions, the old ways don't work. All you have to do is look around you. They are not working. We need to find new ways.
Mm.
And one of the people that I was talking with not long ago said, because I made the comment, I said, well, we need to tear down the old institutions and build new ones. And he said, no, you don't want to tear down the old ones. You want to build the new ones that will make the old ones obsolete. And then they crumble
Yep.
of their own weight, if you will. Um, and yeah, here we are talking about that concept on a very personal level. What isn't working for you? Are you fulfilled? Is that part of the question that you put to people, whether it be in the survey, the assessment, if you will, or just in the exchange via Zoom or in person, what have you? Are you fulfilled in what you're doing? And maybe that's not the same; those aren't the same words that you would use. But what about that in terms of that feeling of fulfillment? Yes, I know we need the money. That's the system under which we live globally. It's not just the United States, it's around the world. but having grown up in the metaphysical community in Arizona and Phoenix, I always heard this phrase: "If you do what you love, the money will follow." And I'm thinking, well, okay, the money has because when you go to your My Social Security and you look at your income from since you've been filing. I did a quick assessment. It was just real rough. Since I started working, since they started keeping tabs on me, in probably what, 72, 73, because I think I had to file tax forms for Paperboy, whatever. I have earned gross about $250,000. Now, it took 55 or so some years to earn that quarter of a million. And the only thing that I really have to show for it is I'm still alive. I'm still here. I don't really have any external assets. And I will tell you that this one asset, me, that's pretty good. I figure, because a lot of people, I hope it's far and few between, they don't make it, and that kind of thing. But what's the dialogue? What's the conversation that you talk to others about as well as yourself when it comes to balancing those two elements of fulfillment of self and fulfillment of the bank account?
Mm, yes, great question. So there's different schools of thought, right? It depends on what's important to you. And I ask my clients if you had to define financial freedom or financial independence or
Mhm.
enough money, if you had to define that for you, what does that look like? Does do you want a certain amount of money in a bank account somewhere? Would that make you feel like, okay, I've gotten to a point where I'm good? Or do you need to own X amount of houses, boats, yachts, cars? Is it cash flow? There's the school of thought that some people, it doesn't matter what you own. You don't really have to own anything as long as you have cash flow to maintain your lifestyle, right? Okay, so that will kind of influence which businesses and industries we look at. Um, you also have to consider what's going on in the market right now. I do want to say something around this because there's a lot of uncertainty, right?
Yes, yes.
There's a lot of fear right now. And any professional life goes through cycles, right? You see this just in like a fiscal year of say a corporation or any business. You see this in the dot-com crash, the like people mention these big things, heck, even 9/11, right? What all these big impacts, wars, when people move to different countries because they uproot their life because wherever they were at the time, it didn't work for them anymore for whatever reason. Those are huge changes. And how resilient are you or have you been in your past in getting through those milestones, whether they were good or like even, bad ones? And we unpack that. There's always going to be ups and downs in the
Hmm.
market. I think it is much more important for the individual to find the thing that they can see themselves doing, whatever that is. Whether it's, I never recommend go after the latest and greatest and hottest fad because, well, that will vanish. But if you have a gift that you bring to the world, I think it's going from that foundation and finding the thing where you can, okay, I can see myself doing this day in, then out, day out for the next, you know, couple of 5, 10 years or so. And then you can't go wrong. I think you need to trust your instincts and you also need to pay attention to the information that's out there for you. And that's the thing that I bring closer to people, right? We're going to make an educated decision. This is not an overnight experience. It's a journey. It is a learning journey. So it's really make the commitment to yourself. What do you have to lose? Because my coaching services that I offer are free. Um, and let's go learn together what your next steps might look like to you.
Yeah, it is a challenge for a lot of us. I guess that I'm one of the fortunate, I don't know, few per se, but one of the fortunate ones who found my vocation, if you will, early in life.
Yeah.
And I remember when I went to school. After I'd got into the business and at the age of 19, I decided I would go to a vocational school for the industry. One of the things that they said was, when you start working, learn everything you can about every aspect. Don't have to do it, but learn about every aspect of it and give it a few years and then specialize. Don't go in there specializing in, I want to do sports, or I want to handle accounting or traffic or whatever the different departments are. Learn about them so that you will understand what is entailed, what it's going to take to do, what you want to do. And then, after you've studied it a bit and learned about it, and maybe looked over the shoulder of the accountant at the station, or the salesman at the station, or the DJ at the station, and watched what they did, and now you see what they're doing, and you say, well, that looks pretty interesting. I think I may want to do that. The other thing too, I'm curious. I have found that if you tap into your childhood, you're going to be more likely to find that which you want to do. There was a public service announcement many, many years ago on TV. Started out with these boys playing with their trucks in the dirt and digging and doing these kinds of things. And then the scene changes to adults. They're all wearing hard hats, and one of them's got a shirt and tie on, and he's holding these blueprints, and these other guys are around him with the vests and everything, and they're looking at the high rise that they're building. The scene cuts back to these girls, and they're playing with their dolls and maybe a little stethoscope and those kinds of things. And then the next thing you see, they're in the ER taking care of the people who have come in after maybe a traffic accident or what have you. And that spoke to me volumes. And then I thought back to my childhood. My dad was an appliance repairman, among other things. And he had this record player, portable, and this little reel-to-reel recorder and microphone and all of these different things. And I put them together on my bed and I played. I just played. I didn't know what I was doing. And it was fun. And I saw the connection. How important is that to try to tap into something that we've already got, our childhood, and most of us are going to be adults coming to you, to see what it is that we really enjoyed doing, but also keeping in mind whether or not we would really be able to make money at it doing, keeping us alive and doing that as well.
Hmm. Great question. Some people are lucky like you that were uh, that discovered early what they were supposed to be doing, and that's kind of that silver lining that's throughout your whole life. For other people, it changes. In my case, I knew when I was in ninth grade, I wanted to be a scientist. I knew that. That's where my heart was, where my love was. My father was a scientist. We always, would look at the stars. But as as you as you build your first passion and your first career, maybe you'll stumble across another passion and you'll do something different. So my
Hmm.
next passion was people after the science career, right? I had taken it to a place where I felt like, okay, I'm good now. This was fun. This was good. I took all the pieces and the lessons and the knowledge with me and applied what I could to the new one because I thrive on that change. Not everybody does that, right?
Hmm.
There was an artistic side of me that I played with for a little bit. Wasn't a profession so much, but I got pretty deep down the art scene for a little while. And musical instruments, just never transpired into like any professional. I probably wasn't good enough anyway. I never was into sports really all that much, enough to stay personally like fit enough to stay healthy for sure, but
Hmm.
nothing professional. But like now that the pivot into coaching to really just help people find their true selves. And you're right, that might tie back into childhood, but not in all cases. Doesn't necessarily have to. Some people just are ready to reinvent themselves because they were pushed into a certain direction during childhood, during their teenage years or early 20s, and that may have worked well for them then, but they've changed and they've grown, right? I mean, there are transformations, especially people in their 30s and 40s. You finally start discovering who you really are. And maybe you got married, maybe you had kids. That influences you and how you make choices in your life.
Hmm.
And you also might learn some new things. Like a couple of interesting things I learned was when I had my first son. I met more people and talked to different people. We were hanging out on sidelines of soccer fields and baseball fields, and you get to meet different people. You're just exposed to other things. You're like, oh, I never thought about it that way. So you might surprise yourself. And I have to say, I have some really fantastic clients. It is a learning journey, not only for them, but also for me. People that I meet with every day, they teach me new things every day. That's partially why I love this, because I'm a lifelong learner. And just being open to what you might learn about yourself, I think is key. And it could be what you were as a kid, and it could be something that has just morphed and grown from there.
Mm.
It's kind of looking at where are you right now and where do you want to take this next?
MajaTaylor.com is the website. The book is Your Career a Revolution, and I love the word revolution. I think that's very appropriate anytime, not just in these times, but anytime, because we're always looking for those, as the phrase goes, there's always room for improvement. There's nothing wrong
That's right.
with where it is right now, but hey, because I love it when they'll buy a house. It's perfect. It's got this and this and this and this. And then within a few years, they're remodeling. It's like, well, wait a minute. You said this was perfect. Yeah, but we want to tweak it. And there's nothing wrong with that. And we're going to continue with the tweaking of your career, your life, our lives as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. MajaTaylor.com is the website. Maja Taylor's my guest. And again, the book, which I find fascinating, and I hope people will get a copy by going to your website, MajaTaylor.com. By the way, that is Majatay. I'm sorry,
Majatatylor.
Maja. Oh, yeah. Now I noticed that it's with a J. Can you tell us why the J as opposed to? I've only seen it as with an I until I met you.
Interesting. Yeah, there's a couple of different spellings that I've seen with a I, with a Y. My name with a J. I am German. That's how they decided to spell it. It's a Y, so it's a silent J, and it's pronounced Maya. So this was my father's idea. Blame
Huh?
him.
Well, I hope that people will get a copy to reimagine and reclaim the life of their dreams. And that's part of what we encourage people to do is dream. Don't ever stop dreaming. I may not care for someone's dream that they're sharing, but it's not my dream to care for. But I can support them in that. And the
Hmm.
best way to support it, if you're not in favor of it, is to shut up. Do not squelch or squash someone else's dreams. They're their dreams to pursue or not pursue. And that comes back to this aspect of words. Words have power. And I was talking with someone just recently about how money has power. That we choose to use our finances the way we choose to use them. It actually brought to mind a research project I had to do back in the 80s, trying to figure out why one of our listeners was so upset over a commercial we were running for these Bible videos, and that the animators used to work for Disney, which wasn't the issue. It was the fact that they were of a different philosophy, a different religion that the listener didn't cotton to. And so for a month, I researched this to try to figure out where is the problem here. Anyway, what I ended up finding out was number one, we made no changes to our programming. We continued to run those commercials because we didn't have a problem with them, even though we knew of this issue. But I explained to the listener who had called initially, and I said, look, how do you know where your money's coming from? Because it comes from all different sources. We circulate. And one of my favorite stories that was told by 60 Minutes was when they, during the height of the cocaine epidemic, pulled dollar bills from all different sources, whether it was banks or individuals or wherever it was. And they tested every single bill, and every single person, and it may still be to this day if you use cash, was tainted with cocaine, which means every single person could be arrested for cocaine possession. But the point was, you don't know where your money is going, nor do you know where it's coming from. So you have to decide. You have to have the intent to put it out there. It has its own, from a metaphysical perspective, it has its own energy. It has our energy and our intent.
Mhm.
And that's why it's so important when we are doing what we are doing. It's like when I get paid from clients, I don't ask them where this came from. What sources do you get your money from, so that I can evaluate whether or not, I should take it. It's just numbers in that context. Um, so that's why I think that when we talk about power, our words have power, and our resources, our finances, our money, if you will, if you want to go to that depth, has power. And we can choose how to access that power and how to use it. Is that a conversation that you ever have in regards to what they will be able to do, i.e., the goals that they've set up through the surveys that you provide them to take, be whether it be the career, whether it be travel, whatever the goals are in that regard? Hey, there's great power in what you want to do, and there's great
Mhm.
power in what you will earn to be able to do the other things you want to do.
Mm. Power and money is relative, right? And money isn't the only thing that carries power.
True, true.
So I like what you said about intention, right? I want to be very intentional with the people that I work with and understand m- what is their most important focus. So I typically ask people to rank it for me. Is money and financial remuneration and building a retirement account, or paying for the kids' school and college, is that the most important thing? Is that what we're talking about achieving? And if they say yes, okay, that's their number one goal. So we'll prioritize that. But maybe it is, I want to start giving back to my community. I'm okay. I have enough money. There's enough in the bank. I'll be all right. I just need to maintain. I don't need to add more. Help me find the thing that really makes me tickle pink when I get up Monday morning and my feet hit the ground, because I want to hit the ground running, right? And then we focus on that. For some people, it's the lifestyle, right? Maybe they want to pursue a hobby. Maybe it is just spending more time with the ones that matter most to them, right? Whether that's the grandkids, or I want to move in with my sister who moved to France, or whatever it is. And then we'll prioritize opportunities around that helps them live that focus out. So I think it's oftentimes actually not just about money. Um, but because we have to pay bills, that still factors in. So let's be profitable, but also be happy.
Mm. Let's talk a little bit about that as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. I am talking with Maja Taylor, and I want to pursue this as we maybe do the final segment here on the program about happiness. In our founding documents of this country, it's the pursuit of happiness is that phrase in the preamble to the Constitution. I've even asked many of my guests, do you think that maybe the founding fathers knew something about happiness from maybe more of a spiritual perspective in terms of that aspect? I've also had my guests say there's a difference between happiness and joy and some of the other terms that would be used. Talk to us a little bit about your perspective on happiness and what it means to you, or maybe even define it from your perspective. What is happiness?
You're asking me for a definition?
I
I
am.
don't know that I'm the person to give that definition, but to me,
Okay.
happiness is something more external, and um, it is fleeting. Happiness comes and goes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking to help people find more that internal joy,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it is a choice. And what you choose to focus your attention on does get bigger.
Mm.
So it's helping people find the things in their life or the people in their life that brings them joy, which will lead to happiness. But happiness is kind of that fleeting thing, right?
Okay.
Just making vanilla ice cream, you make that or you eat that makes you happy. That's
Hmm.
great, but there's an expiration date to that. Joy doesn't have an expiration date, and that comes from making the right life choices. So not only career, but let's integrate the career into your life choices. So if you are living as a joyful person, that may result in happiness as a side effect.
Mm. Now, what does what you do bring you?
What does
Happiness
it bring me?
and joy?
Um, yes, I would say I really enjoy what I do because I get to help people every
Hmm.
day. And sometimes I won't know ever whether I made an impact or not. Sometimes I will know right away because they tell me. Sometimes I can just see it on their faces.
Mm.
And that is it's kind of my drug or my high is when I see somebody have an aha moment or, oh my gosh, yes, you nailed it. Or, but it's not me doing anything. It's just something that transpires in us working together and in our conversation, something they rediscovered about themselves. Or maybe it's just a validation. I knew it. I knew it. Thanks for confirming that for me, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Or I never thought about it that way. Like those kind of little aha moments and nuggets, they bring me joy. And like I said earlier, I'm also learning. So in each interaction, you're the student and the teacher. So I think it's that exchange, that energy exchange between people is why I love what I do and why it brings me joy. Um, and I get to spend time doing the things that matter to me,
Hmm.
right? I no longer report to a boss or um, work in an environment where somebody else tells me what I'm worth
Hmm.
and what I'm supposed to be doing next. That chapter in my life is done, and it
Mm.
was great. I
Yeah.
met some very incredible people. I learned a lot.
Hmm.
A lot of my friends still are in that world of work, but I chose to move on because I needed that for my own health, joy, sanity,
Peace of mind.
growth. It was just time. And
Yeah.
and you just know when that point comes for you, right? So that's another joyful moment of why I do what I do when I see people make that decision for themselves and take their power back. Take your
Exactly.
power back.
Take your power back.
Don't give it up to somebody else. You have one life to live. Time is abundant, but also limited. At some point, you're going to have to leave this planet. None of us get out of here alive, right? Let's make it count.
Yeah,
What do you want to do while you're here? Make it count.
that's a quote from my father. Eat, drink, and be merry in moderation because nobody gets out of this world alive. Maja Taylor, I want to thank you so much for joining us here on the program. I have three final questions that I will ask you right now. I thank you again. And the first one is, who is Maja Taylor?
Maya Taylor is a career and life coach helping you find your next best step of what you need to do
What gets you
to
up in the
lead to your
morning?
joy. Oh, what gets me up in the morning? Helping people. Helping people and never knowing who I'm going to meet today and what I'm going to learn. I'm a lifelong learner.
And finally, what was your best day?
Oh, that hasn't happened yet. And I had some pretty good days.
Well, again, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for allowing me to work with you over the last couple of months, I guess it was, and it was humbling because it's one of those things that you talk about. You know, I want to learn too, and the only way I can learn is I got to say, hey, all right, I know what I know, but there's more to know, and I'm not going to get it if I sit here and go, I'm the expert. That's not going to happen. So, thank you so much for that.
No, thank you, Richard. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me on your podcast. I appreciate you and what you do.
Thank you. And I thank you folks for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story. New Paradigms for a New World. We are giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. And until our next broadcast, podcast, videocast, love to love. Jeanette, I'm still listening. Dad, continue to be happy because I am. Mike, thanks for letting me be in your life. Smokey, I'll see you on the other side. And to my dear friend Zorro, aho, aho.